We're here on Lanzarote, one of the Canary Islands, on the last day of our holiday, and the final one in a series of conversations in the sunshine with John Butler. Morning, John.
Good morning.
We've enjoyed lots of good food on the island, including some lovely fruits from our friend Susanna over breakfast this morning. We couldn't work out whether it were, I thought it was marinated kiwi. What did you think it was?
Guavas.
Guavas. Well, it was delicious, and we've had other fruits like papaya, avocados. Is that a fruit or a veg? Anyway, I thought we would round up our visit to Lanzarote we're on a high note, talking about gifts of the Spirit, and you'll be familiar with the verses, Paul's verses in Galatians. For the fruit of the Spirit is love. I won't turn it into a quiz. Love, joy, peace, kindness, faithfulness, patience. Have I mentioned patience? We've done lots of that, lots of fruit of that spirit here. And self-control. I'm not so sure about the self-control one myself. There's a bottle of rum on the side.
And long-suffering, I think.
Long-suffering. Talk to me about the fruits of the spirit of meditation, John, and long-suffering.
When I first was taught to meditate, we were told the aim of meditation is union. I've referred to this before many times, and also the fact that at that time I didn't know what it meant. In fact, I wasn't at all sure I wanted union, if that meant being united with things I didn't like.
Selective union.
Selective union, indeed. I suppose I wasn't alone in that. I'm sure. You've only got to listen to any conversation to see how easily people lapse into unkind, to say the least, observations about people they would rather not be united with, or indeed have anything to do with, or even inhabit the same planet. But life is not so simple, is it? Or is it? Well, having practiced meditation for many years, I can tell you for sure that one of the results of it is union. First of all, little glimpses of it, I suppose, and then it gradually strengthens and strengthens until actually it becomes more real than the state of separation or disunion. Now then, yes, indeed, subtly and often without our really realizing what has happened, we begin to see things from a different point of view. Now, a helpful way to understand this phrase, point of view, is think of climbing a mountain, or any high structure. At the bottom you see what you see at the bottom, don't you? And then various paths point us to the top. And as we ascend and look around you, the view changes, doesn't it? It's not that we change anything. We don't delete or add things to our vision. It's simply that as we ascend, the point of view widens and widens and widens, until at the top you see a whole panorama, including maybe your far distant home and the home of maybe someone that you don't like and don't want to be united with. And you find you're all in the same scene before you. Well, does that make you more patient? Well, at least while you're in that state of union, most likely yes. It's very interesting to realize that separation, that is me and you, I as a separate entity, and that other person that you don't care for as somebody else, lies really at the base of all our conflicting problems in this world. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted by the howling of the wind.
Strong wind this one.
Yes, it's this total identity with me being separate from the rest of the world, and particularly from the bits we don't like. And the wonderful thing about meditation is that without doing anything apart from letting go that fixation on me, we just feel so much freer for it. You don't disappear off the face of the earth. You don't evaporate to nothing. You actually become more fully. In the early stages, you can't really say what it is. You just feel better. You feel freer. You feel less antagonistic to the others. You might even feel a certain joy. Patience certainly arises. The seeing things more as a whole. An ability to put up with conditions that may have seemed intolerable before, but now seem quite manageable. Indeed, seem part of how things must be. Indeed, ought to be. You really just, changing this point of view changes everything. The fruits of the Spirit. Well, just as simple as that. And ever more so, the deeper you go, you realize that it's actually no loss to lose me at all. And even further, deeper experience of union lead you to think, well, what is this called death? Is it really as real as it seems? What dies? Do I die? Or is it just this I'm not quite sure what it is, this thing called me? And what is me anyway? Is it as real as it seems? Or is it actually a sort of shadow on the face of what I really am? It's not you either, is it? Are you really separate? If I'm not, how can you be? In fact, the whole world is one, isn't it? And this isn't because we see a photo from outer space. It's because we realize it within ourselves, within our own consciousness. And as you get older and the body decays, you realize it's just not a cause of fear or anxiety. It actually becomes quite a relief. You realize that you are being released from what you begin to see as the bondage, the imprisonment in flesh. Ah, is that possible? Am I spirit? Am I a spirit? How many spirits are there? Or is it the spirit? Goodness me, now we're getting somewhere, isn't it? The Spirit, well, what is that? And, but indeed, and so you find yourself sort of with a bubble of, well, look at me now. Maybe you could call this joy, couldn't you? All those awful problems I struggled with all my life, including my painful, stiff old body, they're like luggage that I can leave behind now. And actually, I don't know about you, I was a bit nervous about speaking about God or Christ, but you see, it's what I am. And this is exactly the way God describes himself in the Old Testament, and Jesus also. I am. Before Abraham was, I am. In other words, I'm not restricted by time or space. I am is pure, eternal being. Marvelous. In spiritual union, there's no death, there's no darkness, there's no sorrow, no sighing. Lovely poetic words in the scripture describe it. And every tear shall be wiped dry. I love that.
In the car on the way to Fire Mountain, John, Cesar Manrique's elevated lookout spot over the brooding volcanoes of Tim Fire. I mentioned this idea to you that just one little extra word in Jesus's well-known expression, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," for me resonates deeply. If that is read as "I am is the way, the truth, and the life," some light goes on inside me.
Yes, I'm sure many people, our attitude to religion has been rather shaken in recent years, hasn't it? And the word Jesus has rather tragically, maybe or maybe not, has become something that many people regard with some suspicion, maybe, that you're associated with groups of people and events, perhaps that are part of this that we don't want to be associated with. But to use the word "I am," of course, cuts through all that and brings it back to the realm of personal experience. I am the way, the truth, and the life. In other words, being one undivided self, letting go the fetters of separation, discovering that pure, uncomplicated, always here and now state of pure, simple being. I am. And just as I can say that, so can you and everybody else. And in that, there's no division, no opposition, is there? Nothing to be offended by. Because you realize that everybody else is just sort of play acting this shadow story of I am John Butler, with very fixed ideas and opinions and failings and faults and a cause of offence to many. It isn't actually me. It's a sort of, I don't quite know what it is, a sort of temporary, one might almost say mistake, but maybe a necessary school in which the gold of I am had to be purged of all its dross.
Coming back to the fruit of the Spirit that we find in meditation, it would be true to say that despite differences of view and opinion on things, one thing I recognize in you is you don't let your, shall we say, personal opinions on things slip into judgment. I don't think I've ever heard you say a judgmental word. You might disagree. Usually keep your powder dry, rather infuriatingly at times. But even when you strongly disagree, you don't turn that into a judgmental attitude or a judgmental word. And maybe this is one of the maybe it's a new fruit of the Spirit.
I was told at the school where I studied meditation, I think they put it, don't express negative emotion. But if what Phil says is true, I hope it is. Yes, I think much further than just obeying an order, because one of the great commandments is do not judge, isn't it? Judge not that ye be not judged. Yet much further and having a much deeper, stronger impact than being told something is when it arises naturally from yourself. You see, you learn to distrust your own tongue. You know, this little movable thing inside our mouths is the cause of much trouble, and we do well to beware, be cautious of it. It can come out with the most astonishing, not only untruths but unpleasantness. There are there's much latent darkness within us all, and we should never be too sure that we're home and dry, because caught at an odd moment, unexpectedly, we can display things that we thought were long ago banished from our being. The great blessing of these occurrences is that it helps us to be more humble and ever less trusting of even the last remnants of me, and putting one's faith in the greater I am, which we gradually, and I say gradually, draw into, and with which we may, God willing, eventually merge.
Is there also an aspect where the process of meditation also affects our thinking? I recall, I think it's Paul's words, do not be conformed to the pattern of thinking of this world, but instead be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Yes. When I heard you say just then, bearing the fruits, I immediately felt how easily we might think this is something that we do, that we bring about. Now, what actually happens is that as we learn to let go of our identity with me, it's not that we in any way then bear new fruit. It's simply that we remove the obstacle from seeing what is already there. The world is actually perfect as it is. It's only we that block the light and so distort it. And that's what we call real life and the problems of real life. But of course it isn't. It's the unreal problems of the unreal shadow that we call life. And the work, spiritual work, is not to bring about a change so much as to remove the impediment. And the impediment lies squarely on the shoulders of me. Now then, now once again, Phil, just remind me of the last part of the question.
How does meditation change our thinking?
Well, yes, how does meditation change our thinking? Well, first of all, it takes you beyond thinking. See, thinking is only a sort of intermediate level of the mind, which I like to compare to clouds. They're always changing, going from what may be heavy, dark thunderclouds hanging low over the earth to little light, wispy clouds you can hardly see high up in the atmosphere.
They've been changing dramatically whilst they've been...
Exactly, they're changing all the time, and this is their nature. And as we go up in an aeroplane, we pass through them up into the clear blue sky beyond. And this is exactly what meditation does. It takes you through this layer. That's all it is, a mental layer of movement. Just like clouds or the ripples on the surface of water, to the clearer depths beyond. And those higher, clearer, higher consciousness, you could call it, again, it doesn't so much change your thinking, but it becomes a process of seeing more clearly. Seeing without impediments, in other words, of realizing. And this aspect of the mind, in contrast to the thinking, discursive mind, can be called the reflective mind. It really isn't far from our ordinary everyday experience. We often have times when you just, for example, gaze into a campfire or sit by a stream maybe, or just for some reason or other are caught by something beautiful, something that moves you deeply, and you suddenly realize there is a deeper process of perception taking place within you. That's what it is, the reflective mind. And then beyond that, there are higher levels themselves of pure consciousness, where you actually, you move up into the ever higher awareness of what we call the world is and what it's all about, how it arises.
And what is that reality, John? You could see that one coming.
Yes, I let myself in for that, didn't I? What is it? Well, it isn't a what, because just as we leave behind thoughts, so we leave behind words, because words just by their very nature put a limit around things. The moment we call something good or bad, we sort of put it in a box. So you can't really describe higher consciousness. What you can tell is that when you come down a little bit from higher consciousness back into the realm of description, then these are what you might call the fruits of the spirit. You see life with an undivided eye. And however awful the world may be, you are at peace, and you can even be, its joy is really you can accept what previously was unacceptable, because you see it's all part of law, the lawfulness of the whole. Every tiny speck of dust you see is there by law. Everything is governed by the higher authority. And you look at death and you know it's just nothing. It's only just a not realizing of the everlasting. a blindness to the everlasting. That's all it is. And just a changing from one state to another, but it doesn't, the reality, the I am, is changeless. It takes these things in its stride, or hardly notices them, indeed.
You might want to just wrap up with some reflections on your visit to this island full of volcanoes. It's up to you.
You know, the other day, as we were driving somewhere, and I thought, I'm not here in Lanzarote at all. Neither am I going back to what I call home in England. I have no location. I am location-less. In the same way as I'm time-less and space-less, nameless and formless. Extraordinary, isn't it? Less all the things we use to describe life. But it's even worth saying them again. Without location, time, or space, or name or form. Just pure completeness, in which there is no wish, no desire. All that is because complete perfection. No, not even the slightest shadow of anything called me or John Butler. Whatever it was, like a dream which passed away. And what remains is, well, perhaps just a quiet smile on the face of the tiger. Glory be to God, not me.
John, I thought we might share our grace that we say at meals. It's so lovely. I've sort of adopted it from you now. And if you don't mind, I thought we could sort of bring it to a nice end with by saying that grace together.
The grace we say at the beginning or at the end of the meal?
At the beginning.
At the beginning, all right. Well, that's probably appropriate, isn't it? I have to, how does it go? I forget. I say the first word. Oh, I know, the eyes, isn't it? All right, 1, 2, 3. The eyes of all wait upon thee, O Lord, and thou givest them their food in due season. Thou openest thy hand and fillest all things living with plenteousness. Glory be to thee, O Lord, glory be to thee.